In the city, a thriving metropolis encompassing 1/3 billion souls, a man can change his world as easily as crossing the street. It is a place of a million cultures, the world in microcosm. For some, it is their last hope for survival. For others, it is their playground. And for others yet, it is their hunting ground. Isaac Sarason is a talented hacker, a doctor of applied network theory, trusted employee of British Telecom-Sprint. He lived in a world which 90% of his fellow citizens can only imagine. And he has a problem. His health is failing. His job is on the line. His world is crumbling around him. He wants out. And the street is his only escape. What happens when the life you dreamed of is killing you? What do you do when you find yourself hijacked? Colbyjack.net is proud to present Firmware, Hijacked, written and performed by R.L. Ferguson. Firmware, Hijacked, Episode 14, 24. At 10, Dmitri came for me. There I was, hopelessly outnumbered by ancient babus, grandfathers, one and all, each with a foot-long beard and advice on how to keep a marriage happy. Most methods they supported involved bars, booze, and earplugs. Dmitri pushed his way through the phalanx of graybeards. "Ishmael is leaving the building! Ishmael is leaving the building!" he announced as he approached. The graybeards cheered. Several stuck wads of one-jewel notes into my pockets. Dmitri pulled me away, telling everyone he and I had sacred wedding rituals to conduct. The babus laughed. As we left Ivanova's, they called after us mocking. "Don't tip the skinny ones! Remember tonight, it's the last fun you'll ever have without permission!" We passed onto the street, where a black stretch limo stood waiting. The 4 men of Dmitri's team waited alongside. I recognized David. His frown was ever present. The other 3 I knew from the other night, but I couldn't remember the names. "What's this?" "Bachelor party. Get in. You'll have fun," was all I got out of Dmitri. Dmitri shoved me into the limo. "About time you showed up. I was thinking I'd have to entertain the strippers myself." Frankie's voice rolled across the back seat. Frankie, good old Frankie, had a drink in one hand. The other he used to direct me to my spot. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Is that any way to greet an old friend?" Frankie laughed. "Why didn't you tell me you were getting hitched?" "Came up a bit sudden." I looked to see who was driving. It was David. Dmitri sat across from me. Frankie sat beside me. "I feel like a fool, Dmitri, but I don't remember all your guys' names." Frankie laughed. "That is why you'll never make it as a salesman. Let me. The sour one up front is David. Hook-nosed beside him riding shotgun is Andre. He's got a beautiful sister." "Girlfriend," Andre said. "Liar," Frankie joked. "Now this guy to your right is Ahar. His mom makes the best kinkali." "What'd they do, take you to her place for a snack?" "We visited her while we waited for you to get done embarrassing yourself in public." I figured it out. It was you, wasn't it? All those embarrassing stories, they came from you. Think of it as my present to you. Now the smiler there is Ceci. His wife, she makes moonshine. He calls it cha-cha, but I know moonshine when I taste it. Ceci handed a cup to me. The drink had a hint of orange and grape and the kick of a donkey. "That's Dmitri, you know him, and he's quite irritated at you for making him pay on your date in Park Terrace last night." "What did you do, interrogate him?" "Franklin is very observant and an excellent conversationalist. I don't know why you and he are friends in the first place," Dmitri said with a smile. "You heard the man. I'm a nice guy to talk to. Now, David, you're going to that place we discussed, right?" Frankie leaned forward. "Yes, sir," David mocked. "We're going to the oyster bed and little Chiba, as you reminded me many times before." "Sourpuss, does he ever lighten up?" Frankie asked from the back of the limo. "Only when he's beating the piss out of Ukrainians," Ceci answered. "Now you're going to love this place. It's like if you cross a strip club with a circus, this place would be the love child. Frankie slapped my leg. You'll love it. How do you know about this place? One of my accounts uses a table on the third floor as his office. An office with a view. If you want sexual harassment, you need a pile of bills. Frankie started to tell stories, fantastic stories about his exploits as a freewheeling pharmaceutical rep in a city full of adventure. I listened and watched the neighborhood. Storefronts and businesses gave way to blocks of residential towers, ancient buildings built with the cookie-cutter, dull precision of city center housing developments. Disposable housing built to last until the next wave washed out from uptown. The next wave of gentrification, that is. I remember thinking when I first walked to Tbilisi Avenue, I had found the true city, the place beyond the glory of the alley, beyond the brilliant lights of the core. Tbilisi struck me as a place where people worked in silent desperation, making their way from one unchanging day into the next. I was wrong. The blocks of hopeless developments where people are stored like so much extra luggage was the true bottom of the city. Young men gathered on the corners. Cigarettes hung from their lips. Last year's uptown brands decorated their clothes. Their eyes shone with predatory fire. Their posture was all menace. Men and women with hungry looks approached them. The predatory men conducted business. Their customers left with their purchases buried deep in their pockets. Women in garish outfits stood in clumps along the lane dividers. Their clothes intended to give them sex appeal. Instead, it gave them an air of desperation. Traffic stopped, and I studied the women working the median. Behind the caked layers of makeup, underneath the tight undergarments of plastic and rubber, I saw most weren't women. They were girls. They had the eyes of wizened bebias, old before their time. Their bodies told a different story. Most had not even achieved their final form, their pubescent bodies seeking to become the shape nature willed. Many weren't even pubescent, their bodies halfway between the boyish form of youth and the curves of womanhood. The tired eyes of a working girl locked on mine, and I had to look away. The outfit she wore exposed her midriff. Exposed, along with the fleshed attempt, were the purple lines of stretch marks. She could have been no more than 13. And she was already a mother. We left the business district of the development and crossed into the realm of the old and infirm. I watched lines of old men and women waiting before city aid depots to receive their weekly rations of bread, soy, oil, rice, and beans. The food they received wasn't even real food. It was mock food, generated by a series of bulk food makers in the back room of the aid depot. We passed under an elevated train, and the world changed. The fashion of the street had changed. Low buildings between 4 and 10 stories in height marched along the street. Brightly lit neon glowed with Chinese characters. The development was a hive of Eastern Europeans. Georgian and Ukrainians lived in desperation, a world as far from Tbilisi Avenue as Tbilisi Avenue is from Park Terrace. So close, but it might as well be another world. The train tracks we just passed under served as an even more discontinuous reminder of how quickly the world could change. Is this little Chiba? I asked no one in particular. Frankie leaned close to me, his finger tracking the location of a pharmacy. This is Jian Village, Mandarin Chinese mostly, though most are also part something else. I gave him a quizzical look. Heck, I don't suppose you'll find many who are more than a fraction Mandarin. That's what happens when your great-grandfathers didn't bring their wives along. I wonder how long the place will carry on pretending anyone can actually read that stuff. Frankie opened the sunroof and stood up. Best part about limos. He pulled me to my feet. The chill evening air of the city washed over us as we stood side by side in the open sunroof. Enjoy it while it lasts, Frankie said as he raised his hands high above his head. The wind pushed against his open palms. Give it another 30 years, and this will look like Park Terrace. Oh, sure. They'll keep some decorations to suggest that Mandarin was once spoken here. But it will all be a facade. Everyone will speak Igrish and wonder about the little squiggles decorating the place. Without skipping a beat, he hugged me. So good to see you happy. It's like before. You know, grad school? When you were scamming MBAs with the whole, you need a briefcase, the secret recruiters watch for them line of crap? I laughed at the memory. And you walking around in a daze, fretting over why the only girls who liked you just wanted to use you. Worrying about why no one cared about the real you and all that existential crap. Some things don't change. We watched a towering neon Mandarin script roll past us. So it's grad school all over again. You remember Janet? Frankie shook his head. Never knew her. Know what she did. Never could understand why you didn't go back in there and fry her records for good. Reassign her to a development depot or some other vindictive crap. I shrugged. This time it's different. Of course it is. It always is. Well, at least this Naomi chick seems to be making you happy. Thought you didn't forget a name. It's Nona. What makes you think she makes me happy? Just checking to see if you remember her name. Frankie turned to watch behind us. We rode side by side, the rush of air cool on our faces. Couples on corners waved to us. For one, you're not wearing your shades. Second, I haven't seen you even reach for your pills. Even when you couldn't take one, you always played with the bottle. He waved at a couple with a stroller. Something has changed for the better. Frankie grabbed my face and turned it back and forth. Your implants don't look as inflamed. Been a little busy, but now that you mention it, I can't remember my last headache. It must have been last night. How'd they get you here? I invited myself. Frankie motioned toward Dimitri below. Your best man there came by the place. Mara is off at her parents', enjoying some burb time. Guess the whole family's there. You know how her mother hates me. Mara and I haven't given them a grandchild on the schedule she demands, so I stayed home. Anyways, mysterious Dimitri came by the place and told me you were being honored for an award or some such crap. And did I have any good stories about your time in college? That boy can't lie to save his life. At least against a professional. You trying to say something witty? Leave that to the professionals. It didn't take me long to get the truth out of him. You were getting married, and the father of the bride wanted a few stories for the engagement party. I was blown away. My only friend, the guy who got me through relationship theory, was getting married. He just agreed to bring you along. Not at first. Then I told him I'd call BTS and tell him you were hanging out in Little Russia, and all they had to do was watch the churches. I know they want you back. A man doesn't have the hardware you have without having problems changing companies. Frankie gestured at my implants. I smiled. Thanks for forcing your way in. No problem. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Got to pay you back for my bachelor party as it is. The street before us changed again. The streets became dark and foreboding, the neon replaced by widely spaced street lamps. Better get inside. Neighborhood's a bit rough between here and Godot. Godot? Little Cheapa's main drag. We took our seats. Dimitri closed the sunroof. Thank you, Dimitri, I said. Dimitri looked at me with a puzzled look, then looked at Frankie and understood. It was the least I could do for you. The limo passed through the darkened residential streets. Somewhere along the way, we passed from Jian village into Little Chiba. Ahead of the limo, a bright fluorescent glow lit the night. Godot Avenue. This work is released under Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike license. Do what you want with it. Remix it, re-record it, transcribe it, share it. Just don't sell it or change the terms of the license. Your creation must be released under an Attribution, Non-Commercial, Share-alike license. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.